why we are cheating. Like, why so much? Why is this such an industry here?
If you are looking towards the future, some level of centralization on something like medicine should make sense. Like, how can you have a different syllabus anyways?
It is more important for them because of family and society pressure to become a doctor than it is to be a doctor.
From our position of like privilege, understandably, it's easier to be like, why would you do this if you don't even want to be a doctor? Right?
Cheating has no politics.
Yeah, off the bat, Rohan, I've always been a supporter of reservation.
So welfare is something for someone in a moment, but a reservation is sort of long-standing. It stays.
It stays and it has stayed.
Now there is reservation in job promotions.
In certain key domains, be it medicine, flying a plane, you do think should absolute merit be the only thing.
Did you see the picture/video of the guy who found a finger in his ice cream?
Yeah, it's disgusting, man.
I mean, you're a vegetarian. It must be even worse.
My friend, he's black and he's like, dude, do you realize that for the longest time, like Band-Aids never match my skin tone?
Oh shit.
Tesla ranks poorer on ESG than tobacco companies. So a company that's literally put electric vehicles on the road does worse on environmental governance than a company that sells cigarettes.
Welcome everyone to another episode of The Overcorrection. Today we are talking about something very scary that is going on. Apparently, Puru, there are doctors running around this country today who have cheated on their medical exams.
Oh my God. This is like the one profession where there should not be any kind of cheating. It's scary.
Seriously, guys, if you want to cheat on your exams to get through them, please cheat on your marketing exams, cheat on your art history exams, cheat on your philosophy or history. Do not cheat on your medical exams.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen when you show up on day one of being a doctor and you don't know what the pulmonary artery is?
Yeah, dude, in my job, like learning on the job means I send a couple of wrong emails. Maybe I say the wrong thing in the wrong meeting.
Yeah, you don't want to be caught out there just, oh, that's a vein? Oh, sorry, won't happen next time. Yes, I've learned this now on the job.
Yeah, I mean,
not to make light of a very serious issue, the Neet exams are being recalled.
Yeah, so far it's still under some investigation. So it's not been a full recall yet. They're saying that certain students can take it again. Certain students have to take it again, those that they spotted some irregularities. So basically, to back up, this is one of the key exams to get into medical schools, which is the National Eligibility Cum Entrance Test. And it is administered by the National Testing Agency. So this is a centralized agency that runs essentially the centralized exam to get students into medical schools. Now, the problem is that a flag has been raised that there's been some significant irregularities in the amount of toppers, in the scores that have come out. There have been deviations that are not normal.
Yeah, mathematical impossibilities because of the scoring system of +4 -1. How are you getting scores like 719?
Yeah, that is one. Two is that some students were given grace marks. Why were they given grace marks? So essentially this whole thing has exploded. It's been in the news, I think, every single day. And it is scandalous. I mean, goes without saying that this is something that is toying with students' lives.
And future patients' lives, as we should importantly get to.
Exactly. And very justifiably, the whole institution of the National Testing Agency and exams like Neet have come under immense fire, right?
Good.
So, yeah, which is good. I really think this is good. You should be holding the center to task for this because essentially it is a ticket to another life for a lot of aspirants around the country. And they put a lot of blood and sweat and toil into this exam. And then to find that it's either cancelled and then they have to take it again, or that there's kids that actually get through by cheating, right? It's a very scary prospect. Of course, this has been, lambasted by a lot of the opposition for many years, right? Because the central government's push has always been, okay, this is centralization. This exam should be centralized. National Testing Agency, one nation, one exam. And there's a lot of merits, a lot of demerits as well to doing something like this. So as with most things, it's also very, very political, right? So that's kind of the issue that we have right now. But for me, I think the National Testing Agency has to answer. Like the Supreme Court said, even if there's a 0.0001% irregularity, you have to investigate it.
Yeah. Some of the most egregious things were that they have retroactively given explanations that they should have given as soon as the examinations had occurred.
Correct.
Things like giving grace marks. It's a fair explanation, but why are you only telling us this when you've been caught with your pants down?
Correct. And now, essentially, one is this Neet scandal that's erupted. And I think just yesterday or 2 days ago, the UGC, which is the University Grants Commission, NET, National Eligibility Test, I believe, which is again administered by the National Testing Agency, has been cancelled in Bihar, which has been a huge scandal again, because they're saying that they have essentially found out in their investigations that they found an identical paper on the dark net, the dark web. So then they have to immediately cancel the exam. So, I mean, this is like, I guess there's so many facets to this that we can get into, but at the core of all of this is like, almost like a cops and robbers thing, right? Clearly, these agencies like NTA and all, if you want to stick to a centralized exam, you have to be one step ahead of the thief.
And it may even be that cops and robbers colluding.
Yeah. So that is what a lot of the accusations are, is that who is in cahoots with this? I mean, some students have come out and said things like preposterous things, like they've been offered 2 lakhs up front, 3 lakhs up front. You know, if they pay 2, 3, then they'll get the paper. So it's a system of like open cheating, right? And that's a very scary thing, because as you say, these are like your future doctors.
And I think it comes down to enforcement and penalization. We talk a lot about Western education versus Indian education. And I think both of us would have noticed in our time there, I certainly did, the extreme seriousness with which cheating is dealt with from a very young age.
Yeah.
In fact, they make it easy for you to cheat. They call it the honor code. Go home.
Yeah.
You can't, you're not supposed to open your textbooks and go home and give this exam. And if you open your textbooks, they'll never know. But if somehow you are caught, it is straight away expulsion.
Yeah, plagiarism and cheating is like the most severe offense. In fact, I'm pretty sure like there's other things that are equally severe that are not met with that level of strict treatment. You know, in the US, it's like you cannot err on the wrong side of cheating.
Everything else, you know, they're willing to let slide and change things, but this has been very clear. You know, there's no cases of plagiarism where people are saying, no, but I identify as this person who still like get the
Exactly. And see, that's where it comes down to, I think, is that to take one step back in things like NET or NET and NEET, some of the criticism has been is that they've not even design these exams in the right way. So there's at times not been like minimum scores to qualify. So I think in years past, you could theoretically get like a 2 in chemistry or in like biology and then like essentially be in the rank list.
Just because of a physics grade or
a maths because of a physics grade, or maybe you even cheated on that one thing that you did well, you cheated and you're through. So you're not actually selecting the best through this exam. And that's a scary prospect.
One thing I wanted to talk about is say why we are cheating. Like why so much? You know, why is this such an industry here? And of course we can, part of the human condition, I guess, to want to take the shortcut. But I do think there is a lot of pressure on Indians to secure these type of jobs. Doctor banne ka hai. You know, you have to be a doctor. And there are a lot of people doing this because it is more important for them because of family and society pressure to become a doctor than it is to be a doctor.
Correct.
The focus is on the destination and not how you're going to get there or what you're going to do once you get there.
Which is the scarier thing,
which is the scarier thing. And I think that's where maybe we can just take a look at society. Why are so many people who say don't have the aptitude to become doctors trying to become doctors?
Yeah. And I think that's it. Like one, it reflects, which is the reality, a severe economic inequality that exists in the country, right? And the way that we, as a result, over the last 40, 50 years, design the country is that public jobs, say in the case of your UPSCs and all that, can provide you with such stability that it doesn't really matter if you're interested in the career. You just do it because it gives you a ticket to another life, right? So from our position of like privilege, understandably, it's easier to be like, why would you do this if you don't even want to be a doctor, right? Why go through this, cheat, this and that? But I guess there is that level of pressure to do it.
Yeah.
but I think you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, because even as a doctor, you may one day need a doctor.
Correct.
And you may end up at hospital, and you may get some dude operating on your leg who has a 2 in chemistry.
Yeah, I think it is a very worrying thing. Unfortunately, something I wanted to touch on is, as usual in India in 2024, things got politicized very quickly.
Okay.
Right? So, actually, Tamil Nadu has been long time against NEET. Because they're saying, why are you standardizing this? States should be able to administer the exams on their own perfectly fine and well. And then there's like discrepancies between your syllabus and our syllabus. We should always be separate. Again, merits to their argument as well that it should all be state level. But if you are looking towards the future, some level of centralization on something like medicine should make sense. Like, how can you have a different syllabus anyways? Right?
I mean, yeah, there are strong arguments for some level of globalization for that as well.
Correct, right? Can we find some kind of unified system? And I think that, for me, is a deeper problem. But of course, a lot of the opposition in this case and the center, they always miss the forest for the trees in these arguments. So, Rahul Gandhi has come out and said, what did he say? Something about
the government has ruined testing just as they ruined the economy with demonetization.
Correct. So he's gone and said something like that. Priyanka Gandhi, his sister, has basically gone and shared a video that has then, even the High Court has come and said this is like a false case of a student saying that, their NET exam was doctored or whatever. So even fake news being circulated, people going out and giving all kinds of statements to score a political win, in the meantime, the people that are suffering are the students. The students that actually studied for this exam with full integrity and honesty that are being screwed over perhaps by a retake. And 2 students that aspire to be doctor that are losing faith in the system of the country.
Yeah.
Right? And that is on the center's, that's the center's burden. If they believe that centralization of exams is the way to go. So, but my problem is that when you politicize it as such, you lose room for a constructive solution.
Okay.
Right? So, for example, if, they're like, this is the exam paper leak Raj, the BJP's Raj. And again, there's some truth in that there have been some big scandals in the last, 5 to 10 years. In fact, they say even in this election, in the Lok Sabha 2024 election, that was a big bone of contention. And that's why maybe they lost a lot of youth votes for the exam leaks. But this is not new in India. I think like Shiv Arur of India Today, he just put out a video, I was watching it earlier, on like all the exam leaks in the past 2 decades. It's insane. And it is state and political affiliation agnostic. It's just cheating. It's a bad system. Right?
Cheating has no politics.
Yeah, right? So to make it a political issue is, for me, doing a disservice to any honest research into how we can make this better. Although, that being said, today, I think in Times of India, there was an op-ed that was really beautiful. Like, they were saying, look, there are some things we can do, right? Bring more digitization in. Like, look at exams like GRE and GMAT, right? Globally administered, possibly millions taking this exam.
Very interesting checks and balances in these exams to prevent cheating.
Correct. So it'll be computer adaptive. So, if you do an easy question, the next question might be harder. So there's no set sequence of questions. And they put a lot of focus on cybersecurity, encryption, things like that, right? Where they're saying in this case with both UGC, NET and NEET, where the NTAs failed is that when they outsourced it to the third-party vendors that carry out some of these exams, they have not had the level of cybersecurity protocol that they should have had.
Got it.
Right? So some easy things to fix also, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Right? It's just you've been sleeping at the wheel.
Yeah, maybe this is just the wake-up call we needed.
Yeah, and you know what? For some reason, I feel like this has been a year of wake-up calls for even the center. The protein thing we spoke about many episodes ago was the same thing. They were sleeping at the wheel until this explosive story comes out. And now, like,
brands are proactively changing the ingredients and advertising them before Foodpharmer does another video.
Correct. So,
Love that guy, man.
Yeah, I mean, like, talk about one guy going there and making a difference.
Who is the guy who has filed the public interest litigation?
Yes, I know the CEO of Physicswallah, the company.
That's who I'm talking
That's the guy you're
about.
talking about? Yeah. So, he's been like leading the charge saying this is like unfair, and he's in the, edtech space, and you've seen a lot of organic ground up anger and frustration from students, and I think that's a positive thing that can be used if they lead the charge. They should not be misled by political entities that actually don't care as much as they claim to. Right?
Definitely.
But I think there has to be some way out of this. Either we agree that a centralized exam is worth it. In the case of the UPSC, it's worked more often than not. There have been leaks in the past, but it's been fairly protected against manipulation or cheating.
So far as we know, I guess.
As far as we know.
But I think that point you mentioned is very interesting, because when we look at, say, Foodpharmer and Physicswallah, you can feel the passion and the lack of a political motive in their actions. And that is resonating with people. It's why we are talking about both these things.
Exactly.
It's why millions across the country are talking about this. And it's why people are sort of in a bipartisan way able to think of making change.
And including here, even the Minister for Education has said, look, we have a moral responsibility to fix this. And if we're wrong, we have to figure out a way to hold NTA, the National Testing Agency, to task. And again, to go back to the whole, pointing fingers rhetoric, if you believed once again that this is a dictatorship that we're living in, then wouldn't it be your best interest to immediately bury this story? Because it goes against the center. When here, even the center is willing to entertain these pleas, where the Supreme Court, who you claim is fully bought by the central government, why are they putting up a case that could possibly cost them seats in upcoming state elections? Right? So just my side point to stop this rhetoric once and for all, because it's getting irritating. But, these are the things that come up. But I guess this is a polarized society we live in.
Maybe less now. Maybe less in these years coming up. So I think we've discussed examination scandals. Wanted to get into another topic that may be affecting our healthcare. Much more contentious topic, but I think certainly worth addressing on a population health level is reservations.
So equally completely polarized topic in India.
Way more polarizing, I'd say, than I think everyone can get behind the cheating is bad, but reservations is extremely polarizing. Now, on this show, we have always promoted this idea that India needs to have a welfare-based state.
Absolutely.
And you had some thoughts on how you'd said reservation is not exactly welfare.
No, I guess for me, it's that reservation, like if you were to say welfare is something that should be a public good for everybody who needs it. Here it is picking specific categories of people that are particularly disenfranchised that should get additional support. But off the bat, Rohan, I've always been a supporter of reservation. I think it's something that should stay. If you've had an historical injustice so severe, you have to correct for that. And I think no government really has been averse to it. The politics is somewhere within that on the specific numbers, right? So the small piece of context for the listeners would be, and most would know, that there's the Indira Sawhney Supreme Court judgment, which put a cap of 50% of seats to be reserved. No more than that, essentially, is what that says. So
in government colleges.
So in the government jobs and things like that. So essentially, any reservation that is introduced, if it goes past that 50%, there's a chance where it can be deemed unconstitutional, or it'll go to the Supreme Court and then they'll have to sort it out again. Because there have been many attempts to increase reservation. I think that is one of the planks of the opposition in this election. Right? We're going to do a caste survey to then figure out the real number so that we can change reservations. But they know that it's very unlikely that Supreme Court would go against the Indira Sawhney judgment of 50%. And you have your categories, right? So scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, other backward classes, and EWS, right, which is the newer one, so economically weaker sections, which again was very contentious, because then for the first time you were moving it to financial inequality rather than like social inequality,
which I think is sort of related to this welfare versus affirmative action. Like, I'd say welfare pretty much is financially based affirmative action.
Correct, in a sense.
And right? Reservation has this sort of cultural lineage, hereditary aspect to it. So welfare is something for someone in a moment, but a reservation is sort of long-standing. It stays.
It stays, and it has stayed, right? For many years in the country, decades. So I guess that is where a lot of the debate comes in. So I think the debate on whether you need reservations or not, for me, I don't think there's much of a debate. I think you need it. You should have it.
So I completely agree. And then I hear something about not only say is there a reservation in medical college, then there is a reservation to get into your master's. So you've already equalized it once. Now you're equalizing it again. Fair enough. You're still studying. Now there is reservation in job promotions.
Yeah. So constitutionally, there's a provision that allows for reservation in job promotion, in UPSC, in the IAS to get the specific cadre that you want. If you want a specific cadre based on your rank, it can apply then as well. When in essence, these exams were supposed to say that, okay, once you become an IAS officer, it's gone. You are basically at the top.
That's what you say. Once you become a doctor, fine, you've reached there. Now make it on your own. Now, why I bring this up is because this is going to negatively affect our healthcare as a population. How would it not?
Yeah.
Say that reservations as a fundamental principle, even at a entrance to college level, will affect the population. Fair enough. You can make that argument saying you're weeding out some people who say more meritocratic, and maybe you're willing to take that hit at an admission to college level. But you're willing to take that hit once you've become a professional and are now working the actual job?
Yeah. See, that's where things get very problematic. And see, I also do believe that a lot of the, kind of allegations that are thrown that, reservations in medicine mean you have less trained doctors and all. Some of that is quite misleading. I think some of the most recent research I've read or articles that I've spoken about, it said, hey, it's kind of like a red herring. It's not really true. Even people from the reserved sections are scoring as well as general category. And there's not that much of it's more of like a alarmist thing that people are saying that, reservations are taking away all the merit in the country. So I think it is a bit alarmist, but in certain key domains, be it medicine or flying a plane or like critical engineering, you do think should absolute merit be the only thing.
Yeah, and look, there can be preference. So I understand two people score the same. This is the age-old argument, right? There can be a preference. Two people score the same grade. Someone from a disenfranchised community should be given the leg up.
Yeah.
The second their grade changes, it's immaterial by how much it changes, because then you are, say, compromising on the output that you're going to get. Just to give a reference, this is reservations in India is what DEI is known as globally.
Yeah.
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Score you good corporate
points. And really good at trailblazing this idea of inclusivity, and they've done a lot of good work.
Yeah.
Today, there are reports suggesting that the American airline industry is being plagued with DEI that is causing a significant amount of actual life-threatening situations of planes malfunctioning while flying because checks are not done properly, pilots who have been pushed into DEI programs because now you have a DEI requirement that 50% has to be from this marginalized community. Okay, that's a good aim to have. Oh, but this year we have 40%. Hey, quickly get that guy from baggage claim.
Yeah.
And, throw a suit on him.
Yeah.
And this is an exaggeration, but it is not as much it is not as much of an exaggeration as it should be.
And it's happened in even I know there was a whole claim that even the Oscars put out some crazy diversity guidelines on who can win. So the movie has to feature a certain X amount of stories and this and that.
I am totally okay with that.
And here's the thing is that I get it too.
Do it there.
And that's why I don't think DEI upfront should also be thrown in the bin, because it's true, man. Some stories are not told and they need the representation.
100%. And let it be in movies you show.
Yeah.
Let books that get published be DEI books or reservation books. No one's fighting for reservations in the arts, I'm saying the reservations are going to star kids.
Yeah.
That's the only reservation we have in Bollywood.
Yeah, I feel like we should put it in Bollywood, say
100%.
Yeah, it should be reserved.
That's how you enfranchise the community.
Yeah. Someone told me something interesting, a small thing on just you don't realize how there can be a lack of representation. My friend, he's black, and he's like, dude, do you realize that for the longest time, Band-Aids never match my skin tone?
Oh, shit.
And I was like, yeah, you're right. And see, these are small things which it does make a difference at some point. You don't even realize. Frankly.
I didn't even realize Band-Aids were made to match your skin tone.
Right? Match a certain type of skin tone, essentially. right? So, in fact, in India, I don't know. In India, I feel like they're a bit browner.
Yeah.
No. So
yeah, I mean, I guess that totally makes sense.
to get back to the reservations point, I think can we seriously look at two things? One is the domain that we're applying it in. Can we just redesign the system where it's truly equitable? And even say people from disenfranchised communities who over generations have actually accumulated significant amount of wealth and status, should their offspring and their progeny still be eligible? Right? So is there a statute of limitations on how long it should be applicable? Do we think it makes sense to have it in the private sector? I know certain states who actually, using it as an electoral tool, saying they're going to start reservation in the private sector. So if Google wants to open, they have to reserve seats. That you might turn business away.
Okay.
There's some provision like that. So, dude, reservations is like a very complex landscape in the country. And I think it's a very emotional topic. It's very real. There was a very real historical injustice. So it should be there. But I guess the conversation around is how can we design it with a 21st century view into the future, right?
And there's also the bad effects of it, which is that, say, it propels the caste discussion forward rather than letting us forget about it. Yeah. There are people from these backwards communities who people may assume have gotten where they are just because of reservation.
Which is like really unfair to them.
That's so unfair. Like, it must be so sad that people think that you've gotten somewhere because of brownie points.
Yeah. I was just thinking, sorry, on a side note, but just a funny thought I had is me living in the US, I always really liked DEI programs because it was like, you could be in college in the US and if a white guy said that, I want to go into like Goldman Sachs, everyone would be like, oh my God, like classic white guy becoming a banker and destroying the economy. But if I apply for the Goldman Sachs DEI program, it's like, oh, you go get that bag, Buru, go get the money. I'm like, I'm also going to join the same bank that is going to do the same stuff, right? So, it's like give certain people like a cover from the reality of the industry as well.
Yeah, it's easier. If you are in a country where you are an immigrant, you are likely to be, say, more pro-immigration for that country.
Yeah. Dude, I was just thinking about it because you mentioned, like, even Elon Musk recently, I remember he pointed out, so Tesla, this is like, I would call it like the stepsister of DEI is ESG. He was saying like, Tesla ranks poorer on ESG than tobacco companies. So a company that's literally put electric vehicles on the road does worse on environmental governance than a company that sells cigarettes. You can't make this up, man.
It actually highlights how so much of this is just moral posturing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's...
And a tremendous waste of money. People have been talking about in the US colleges how expensive they've become over the years, like over the past 50 years. And teacher salaries have not increased. Like in any significant way proportional to the increase in cost. So one, you're paying for, like a spa and the sports facilities now at your college education. But you're also paying for all these new departments that have opened up, sensitivity counselors all over the place. Like, what is your student to sensitivity counselor ratio is now going to be as important as
it's crazy
actual education.
Yeah, so you're having people on payroll for like a ESG specialist and like you do a deep dive into what they've actually done and it's not making sense. So I know I maybe took us on a tangent here, but we have to rethink a lot of these policies that might seem like they're on a moral high ground.
Yes.
And there is truth to that moral high ground, but the actual application of it and the manifestation of that might actually be counterproductive to where you want to end up.
100%.
Right? So yeah, food for thought. For thought. I hope these scandals get resolved. What's been nice to see with both, some light at the end of the tunnel is that everyone on board is saying, look, we will investigate this in a way that students that did study for it don't lose out, honestly. And the ones that did cheat are made to take the test again or even face like strict disciplinary action. But, it doesn't bode well for the doctors of the future of the country.
Yeah.
And that's something we need to really introspect.
Speaking of agencies, before we wrap up, I did want to bring up, did you see the picture/video of the guy who found a finger in his ice cream?
Yeah, it's disgusting, man.
I mean, you're a vegetarian. It must be even worse.
Yeah, it's horrible, dude. I feel like, but in the last month, there's been a lot of, hey, I found this in my food.
So after that, the dead mouse in the Hershey syrup came up.
Dead mouse in the Hershey syrup, finger in the ice cream, a razor blade in the meal on a flight, in the in-flight meal, like a blade that was used to chop.
So I don't know if one case is true and then everyone's just like trying to get clicks on. This has got to be the weirdest way to get attention if this is fake. Like big brands like Hershey's, man. I mean, like Hershey's, I've not seen, like it says brand response, but I don't know what they would even respond. I didn't see a response. It said brand response and I went through the thing and there was no response. But crazy. So if assuming none of this is a hoax, which I admit it could be, like people see one going viral, they'll be like,
oh, I found this, I found this. But these all seem like evidence-backed, huh? Like people have put up the photos and videos and all that.
But like, they're always videoing them pouring Hershey syrup on. Like, it feels a little sus. Like, why did you have your what were you going to do with that syrup?
Yeah. Why do you have your camera out?
Why do you have your camera
did you take it out later once?
So, and it could be shot in a way that is, they've planned it out. So they won't show you when you started. They'll make it seem like, oh, he just found this. Now we're starting the video. So I can imagine it being fake. It's not that you can't fake it. But assuming it is not fake, what the hell is going on?
My only guess is that somewhere on the supply chain in India, it's getting compromised. If you have like a third-party distributor and at that level, it's getting... But this would have to be like a factory-level mistake, right? For it to be in the bottle, I guess.
In the bottle, yeah. I mean, the big vat had a mouse somewhere in it. It was like clear, yeah.
Scary. And like, it's one of these things where it's happening more and more. Maybe now that it's like one of those things, where people say that once you meet someone, you'll start seeing them more. You'll start recognizing them more in the locality around you. I feel like it's one of these things where now that one or two stories have made it big, now like a lot more stories are coming out or the news is reporting it more because then they'll get more attention.
Is this under the FSSAI's purview?
I mean, theoretically, all entities that are in the food space that are selling stuff here would fall under their verifications and things like that. So
can you imagine that guy whose finger got chopped off? It means that was some dude's finger, right? So
yeah,
I'm assuming he works in the ice cream factory. Okay,
I hope, or it's like a true crime story.
Yeah, or it's like a true crime story that's waiting to happen. And we're going to see it on Desi Crime or that, that true crime podcast.
Yeah, I know.
But otherwise, it's a guy who works in the factory.
Yeah.
Who in some part of the manufacturing process, finger got chopped off. Probably preserved pretty well in the ice cream.
Yeah, very well.
Imagine if that's how it happened. Like his finger gets chopped off and he's like, where do I put it? You idiot, you work in an ice cream factory. You just leave it in that ice cream.
Yeah.
Good then strategy. It gets packed into
the box and it goes to some random guy who then finds it in his evening ice cream.
He was a doctor too.
What?
Did you see how he described it? He was a doctor. Now I have no faith after our whole discussion about how he became, because he's like chewing on it and he's like, and I felt something chunky and I'm a doctor, so I was like, this is like cartilage. What? Yeah, he said something like that. Like it was like relevant that he was a doctor, that he didn't mistake it for a chocolate chip cookie. Like all doctors think we are morons. Like if we weren't doctors, we would have just been like, that was a little salty.
Yeah, the Rocky Road ice cream was really rocky today, but it was all good.
He found a nail, bro.
Oh God.
Oh.
I just hope FSSAI steps up and just increases the amount of regulation on all these. It's like scary.
I'm genuinely like, I didn't buy Hershey's. Like not that but I would, after that came out, I would be just suspicious.
Right? Yeah.
Instamart, Zomato, it was like like not from some resale vendor where the packs opened and stuff like that.
Correct.
So man, a lot of administration things going on, from doctors to fingers in Hershey's syrups, dead mice.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
To reservation and what might that look like in the future.
Yeah.
Right? A necessary thing, but how can we work with it? DEI.
Yeah.
Good, but what has the manifestation been like? Is it actually helping the people that it's supposed to help? And is it taking us towards a future where humans are prospering? I don't know. Only time will tell with these things, but I think especially on the tests, we need a lot more vigilance on the side of the government. And I hope that they do that, because there's lives at stake. Kids are killing themselves. Suicide with exams is a reality in India. And there were suicides now when Neet just got under the scandal. I think 4 kids killed themselves. So it's a scary thing. It's a sobering thing. And I hope the government takes NTA to task and reforms where it needs to and finds a way out, because we need a way out of this.
Okay, that's it, guys. NTA, FSSAI. Buck up, it looks like.
Yeah, 100%.
I think we can end the episode there, man. Cheers.